the utilization has exploded across North America in that time. I have a number of slides here that Sage uses when they present the technology, and I'm going to start with this slide here, and we'll do that. Just to hit the high points, that Office Connector is a product suite. Sage Office Connector is encompassed by a technology called Query, which from Excel allows you to connect to your external information, so that you're utilizing your skills in Excel to build the content you want. And there are easy-to-use wizards, these types of things that help you navigate the information, the tables of information, the columns in those tables, to present them on the screen the way you want. And then that content will be preserved in that format, allowing you to utilize that on an ongoing basis. That technology is widely utilized. I'll give you some examples in how that's used. Addition to that, this is bidirectional. So it's very different than most systems. It has the capacity to write information and import detailed information. Those two other technologies. There are other, of course, ERP systems out there that allow some kind of capability like this. Not exactly like this, but similar, but very few of them would allow you to write back to their system, because they don't put the business rules there to make sure that the information written is correct. So there's a programming interface through the OWC driver allows us to do that kind of writing. So I'll give you some examples of each of these. But in the end, what these products right here are, they're tools for you to think about what it is that you want to accomplish. Often it starts with reporting, and it evolves into automating processes that are either tedious or error-prone from human interaction, and streamlining these so that you work more efficiently with your information. That's the purpose. And to use a platform that you're very comfortable with, most likely being Excel, used by well over 300 million users across the world. When we think of Office Connector Query, there are two license types, and for more information on licenses and all that, the final slide, of course, will be Patrick's information, and Patrick can provide you all of that. But the two license types for querying are the ability to design and refresh. That's called a designer, and it is based on a concurrent use. And then the standard license, more affordable, allowing people to refresh information. If you simply wanted to share a completed workbook with someone, they didn't need to be refreshing it. There's alternate approaches to share it as an Excel workbook. They wouldn't need any license of technology to be able to just look at a workbook that you created. Also, I'm putting underneath the Office Connector area, the query area, the financials. So there's a separate extension to query called Office Connector Financials. Came out 1.5 years ago. It will allow you to do things that you could not otherwise do with the regular financials inside of Sage, rolling forward 6 months, back over 24 months, consolidating entities that have different period ending dates, different fiscal ending dates, and so you could run a financial as of a calendar month, and it will do everything for you. So if you've ever tried to do anything like this in Excel, you'll very much appreciate what that technology does. And of course, I've mentioned the import and writing, which I'll touch upon when we get into this. So we're going to start first with
James, just give me 1 sec. Just give me a sec. I'm going to just mute all, and then I'm going to bring you back on. Great. Go ahead.
All right. Wonderful. So we're going to start first with the Query Designer, and then we'll get into the other technology. We'll return to this PowerPoint later. Okay. Well, when you install Office Connector, you're doing so really when you install Sage. We're an OEM partner. Office Connector is a Sage product, just like Accounts Payable and Job Cost and Report Designer. And there's a launch pad that you'll see on your desktop. Everyone has access or should have access to the starter templates. So I'm not going to go into these, but if you opened your launch pad and you went into the welcome area, you'll see information on products and documentation, all sorts of orientations. But it'll also have little introductory tutorials for the starter templates right there. So I'm not going to cover that because you can just see that yourself. if you notice there's a financial on there, if you have secured your information with Sage, the security in the Sage database, you can secure access from outside of the Sage menus. And so you can lock down access to financial information. That way, if somebody tries to run a report that's on here and they don't have the login and password for Sage that allows them access, they wouldn't be able to see that information. I'm going to focus on some of the reports that are here on this Launchpad. And notice there are a lot of reports here. So we recommend that you have a look at these. They represent different ways of utilizing Excel versus traditional report writers. So in Excel, it's an interactive report experience, and you're able to present information that otherwise might not even be related in traditional report designing. And I'll try to show you some of that. One of the first things that I wanted to show you is the ability to search the database. It's one of the most, the first used templates I know that people utilize, and I talk to them at conferences. When you select this template from the Launchpad, you'll notice there's an information page. And so as you examine, if you're not already an Office Connector user, if you examine these templates, you'll notice it will tell you exactly what the template does, how to use it, what products are involved here. And really all you have to do is come here and identify the different applications tables that you want to look through, and then put some common fields here that will allow us to go out and search the entire database for this kind of information. If you scroll down, you'll notice that there are fields that are general ledger or job cost centric, just specific to those applications, so on and so forth down the line here, that you could also apply your search criteria. And then by clicking on search, it's going to go out and look into the database and then find any occurrences of whatever it is that you put in there. Notice in the description, I only put part of the description. I knew I wanted to find something that had these hookup information in it, but it can find that text anywhere in a text stream, so it's quite powerful. Notice here there's 6 matches in job costs and accounts payable. So if I click here, I'm seeing the detail for job costs, and also I would be able to come here to accounts payable and see that detail as well. So this is a way of utilizing this information, this technology, in a useful and in this case a forensic sort of a way. And I was shocked. There's a lot of capability on the Launchpad that people don't bother paying attention to. They get going using it for this technology for a certain purpose and never bother really exploring the capability. So one of the things we do is when you're sold Office Connector, there's an orientation that is essential services sold with us, and we go over how these different types of templates work and where to find information, so you get a nice solid start. You're working with probably some of the most experienced consultants of any business partner though with Constructive Solutions, so either way you go, you're going to be in a winning situation. I want to point out another one here. I don't always do this, but I notice people don't look at these, and so I want to point them out. And also, we're getting toward the year end, so this kind of thing becomes quite useful. This is a batch analyzing template used specifically to find information for batches. So if I looked, I've got fortunately some sample values that I can put in here and have success in finding information. Oops. It's telling me I need to pick my data folder. So here on the add-ins in Excel, on the add-ins tab, there is the Office Connector technology. If you hover over these buttons, they'll explain what they are. And I can open a data folder here and log in, and then I'll have access to that data folder. And I could then refresh that information. Now, I'm working with sample data that I think changes. So forever it was 2013, and now it's 2015, I think. Much easier when you're working with live information, but you'll see really quickly right here if there were any batches that were out of proof. If even if they weren't out of proof, you may wish to look through a specific batch, perhaps. So let's say there was a batch, 9. That's kind of an interesting one. There's debits and credits are blank. So if I came here, I can see this is batch 13 that I already filled out here. But if I said I wanted to look at batch 9. I can refresh the information here. You can also refresh information up here. If you go to add-ins, this lighten bolt will refresh all the queries in the workbook, and notice there's quite a bit of information here. So I like this. We built this for forensic accountants, originally for an insurance investigation. I really like this because prior to this, every consultant out there, had a different approach to reconciling batches, and this gave an easy-to-use single way to approach it, which can be very useful. So up to this point, I've shown you just a couple of the reports on here, ones that a lot of times people don't go off and look at, but I've just been using a standard license. I haven't built anything from nothing, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now for you. I'm going to use a designer, because when we first created this technology, there were no templates. There wasn't even a launch pad. We expected that people would just build their own ad hoc reports, whatever it is that you wanted. That's what this was built to do, is to be a tool for you in that way. So I'm just open an empty Excel workbook and build something. In this case, I'm going to build something that there was a customer actually just earlier today who had asked a question about building something like this, so I think I'll just use this here. And so in my case, I'm going to build something that I think I might want to use going forward. So it's going to be a job cost-oriented thing, the thing that I'm going to build. I'm going to put in a job that I know there's some data in here. And the first thing I want to do is I want to populate this with all my cost codes. And so I'm going to go to the add-ins, and I'm going to use the query capability. So query allows you to connect Excel to external data that's dynamic. And you can save it in that wide dynamic way. Pardon me. So when I click this, I'm presented with the opportunity to pick my folder and log in. Now, some people will look at this, everybody in the presentation seems to be very advanced versus just starting out. If you're thinking that you want to use this technology in a very advanced way by connecting data from multiple Sage folders and editing the SQL, the structured query language, you can do that. That's a bit beyond an orientation, a beginning kind of an overview, but it is certainly within the capability of this technology to do that. Okay, so I'm presented with a list of tables here. I specifically, if I'm looking down here, I want job cost codes. That's what I want on my report. So I come down here and I find this table, cost code table. If I wasn't sure of the table, I could preview, and it would show me the kinds of information in my database in that particular table. So it will help people who are not as experienced with the information here. So I'm coming in here, and I'm going to pick the job, extra cost code, the description. Maybe I want some information like maybe I do my billing at this, my schedule of values, my billing, so I can look at the original schedule of value potential and approve changes and revise schedule of value, perhaps even grab my estimate. If I wanted to find an estimate, I could just type that word in there. I could hit the letter O because the original estimate starts there, and it will do a best fit that way. So there's lots of ways to find information. And that's really as far as I'm going to go right now. Actually, I'll grab these two because I want to demonstrate some capability here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come out here and I'm going to say that I want to apply a condition. Because I'm connected to the cost code table, I would get every cost code for every project. And if you have an archived project, that could be closed ones too. So I don't want that. I want it for this one, whatever one I noticed I put into C3. So I'm going to add a condition that the job equals, and it's not going to be a literal value. I want to tie it to a parameter. In Excel, a parameter is a cell in your workbook. So I'm going to say that I want it to be the value in C3. So C3 is what the job is, and I hit next, and I can then, name this report, whatever I want to name it for a specific, because I can have a number of reports in my workbook, and I have a result. Now, what this customer did earlier is they did this exact report, except they grabbed group cost codes, and they didn't want the group cost codes in there. They have a section job cost code, and they only want the detail ones. Otherwise, you're going to get their total doubled up. So with Office Connector, you can just go in here to your add-in to have it, and right next to where you did the query, you could edit your query and come back in, and now it's going to display the condition you established in the original way that the technology, this is how people had to work with conditions originally. They were successful, but I'm going to go back to the visual editor, which requires me to reestablish my condition. So I'm going to say that not only should the job equal the value in $C, $3, but there should be one other condition. I want the group cost code. There's a flag on your cost code, and if I change this to a literal value, then I'll say that the group cost code, this is a Boolean value, check marked or not, yes or no. So this would be only group cost codes, and this is no group cost codes. That's what I want. So now I have a more elaborate condition. I can edit my condition. I can put in ors, and I can put ands and ors underneath here, and do pretty much build whatever condition is I want. Now I'm going to come back here and finish. I'm going to get a different result, and I'm going to change this. I'm going to use Excel at this point. I've done Office Connector. I could be done using my designer perhaps. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here by right-clicking within a query. I can go into the parameters, and I can say that the parameter that I established, there are two parameters. One is a fixed value and what have you, but I want to say that the parameter is refreshed. When I refresh the workbook, the parameter gets refreshed here. So if I change this to, it will refresh automatically, as you notice here. So 03, 001. So that's like the beginning when you start to see these templates that are on the Launchpad. This is in the beginning kind of a way to work with the data. But in this case, let's say I want some information from my transaction table based on the cutoff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a range of dates. I'm going to say I want to look at from 1/1/2015 through 5/31/2015. I want to look at, let's say, AP cost, JC cost, something like that. So I can see my individual types of costs, and I can add those up to become job-to-date costs if I wish. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use, instead of a query, I'm going to use the formula capability. So if I go back to add-ins, there's a number of formulas here. There's the ability to look up information, find information, count, and sum, and that's what I'm going to do. So think of this sum, if you're familiar with Excel, as being like a sum-if function in Excel. So if I were summing off of another sheet, I'd tell it to sum one column if other columns equal values that I specified, perhaps values here. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, except the data is not going to come from Excel. It's going to come from inside of Sage. So I click the sum function. It asks me what you want to look at, and I say, well, I want to look at job cost transactions. And I can pick, it's showing me the numeric values. So I'm going to pick amount here. And now I'm going to start adding conditions. And if, this is, you've probably heard of things like garbage in, garbage out. If you are building a condition and you apply something that doesn't make logical sense, you're going to get a result that's the same. But if you carefully think about this, and you will get better no matter what. This is one of the reasons I added job as one of the columns, because it makes it easy for people just to look across here. I'm going to say that the job must equal the value in $D6. So I'm building a formula for N6. And I am going to do it in such a way that I don't have to build any other formulas, really, because I'm crafty and I'm going to use Excel columns and rows and so on and so forth. So I'm going to put $D6 because I'm going to copy this formula to the right when I get done, but I don't want column D to change for the job. It's always column D. And so now I'll add another cost code. The extra equals $E6. Okay, so that's the job extra cost code. Now, I want to get a transaction type. Now I have to put my transaction types here in the columns. So I can add a condition. I can say transaction type equals. I could have done it this way, set it equal to literal value, and then click this box, and I see all my transaction types in my database. These are not all the possible transaction types. What we've done is we've queried your entire database, and we've shown you a distinct list of the transaction types used. So I could say AP cost there. But I don't want to do it in this way. I don't want to tie it to a specific type. I want to tie it to that column heading right there. So I'm going to say the transaction type is a cell reference, and specifically, it's in row N. I'm not going to lock that. I want that to change when I copy it to the right. But I don't want the row to change when I copy the formula down. So I'm going to lock the row to column to row 5. That's what row this is on. So N5. Just Excel really is what I'm using here. Now I want this date range. I'm going to do exactly the same thing here, except I'm going to make a complete 6-cell reference there. So I'm going to add a condition that the accounting date is greater than or equal to the value in N3. Now if I put N2, I would accept it. It wouldn't be valid, but so you want to think about what you're doing. So I'm going to say it has to equal value in N3, and if I copy it to the right or down, don't change that. It has to be right there. And I'll add one last condition that the accounting date is less than or equal to the value. Now, and you should take a look and make sure you've got your conditions the way you want them to be. You can still come back and edit this if you made a mistake, but with this, you'd have to rebuild it. Okay, so you could edit it up in as a formula, but you're not going to get back to the wizard for editing formulas. You have not had that capability. Not sure if we will or not, because people are successful doing this inside of Excel anyway. So I'm just going to hit finish, and then here you have it. It's an Excel function. See, so if I click the function selector up here for Excel, it's breaking the components out. See, our technology is Excel-based, so they become Excel functions. And because of that, quite easy for people to navigate. And that is correct, so I'm going to copy this down. And it'll say on the bottom that calculating. So if you look on the bottom here, I've got my green bar on the bottom. It'll tell you it's calculating. When it's done, it's done. Now I do that, and I copy it over here to the right, and I can copy this one down. So it works. However, there are more advanced ways to use this technology because of certain things that you may try to do, the size of your database, what ODBC has to do in order to build a report. We may teach you more advanced ways to do types of reports. I'm going to show you a work in progress report here in a second. It's going to be quite advanced, but hopefully you've tracked me so far. I've built this. I can remove grid lines. I can do things like grouping these together. And if you go, I think it's under data and group, I can group information like so. And then when you group, did I group and ungrouped? Maybe I'm not, oh yeah, sorry, it was up there. Okay, you might want to leave a report like that in a more summarized way so that the real estate is preserved, and then break it out if you want to see detail like that. I've noticed people will do that. So if I change these dates, it'll change, but for you it could take a while to refresh because it's doing a lot of summing, and it's doing it every single time for every function. It has to go out to the server and fill it up. So there is a more advanced way to do these kinds of things, quite a few, and we teach this in we have training classes that we offer online, and some of the more advanced ones teach you how to use what's called SQL, Structured Query Language. I could see the SQL for this query that I built here simply by being inside of it. I can click on the SQL, and that is what the wizard built when I first did that query. That's the language of databases right there. You don't have to be an expert at that if you don't want to. Other people can do the more advanced things for you, and you see you can do quite a bit without having to get to this point. But I want to show you something more advanced in a moment. First, though, Patrick, this might be a good point to stop and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, that sounds good. So if you have any questions about the query capabilities that James has demonstrated so far, please, now's a good time to maybe ask.
Did you want to take them off mute, or they could chat, I suppose, to us?
Everybody's off mute now, so we could hear them all if they were asking.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, then, with no questions, let's continue. So this is an interesting beginning. Really, though, what people will tell you is if you can think it, you can build it with this technology. I could go on and show you more and more advanced ways of doing it. One of the common things that people do, they might build a report like that and then do a pivot table off of it. Other people may build like a reconciliation, maybe for like between job costs and GL. To do that, very easy with technology like this. So if I just hit a query and I said, looking at the job cost transactions, I want to look at all the debit accounts, and I want a distinct list of only just the debit accounts. So I'm going to build in my mind a reconciliation. So I'm going to say, looking here, I'm scanning the columns, and there's a lot of columns, but I just want the debit accounts, and I only want rows in the table that have debit accounts. So I'm going to say that the debit account is not equal to blank. Don't put anything there, and that's a null value right there. Okay, so the debit account can equal blank. Then I come here to the last screen, and I'm going to tell it to exclude duplicate rows. Now I would probably edit this query or name right here, and I'd say, you know, distinct The reason I do this is we notice that people will build workbooks that have a number of reports in them. A lot of times they'll have, the sheet one is a dashboard with hyperlinks to all their different sub-reports. And I've seen some pretty incredible things that people have done. And they accomplish those hyperlinks by naming their reports, and so that they know how, you know, what report to jump to. So I think that's a good best practice. Now I could just, I'm just going to quickly build this for you. I'm going to use the lookup function to get the GL account, and I'll look at $C5 for the account number and grab the title and pull that in. And then I can copy that down. Now, what I want is I want to put right here, I want the amount from job costs. And here I'm going to have the amount from general ledger. I want to compare them. So I'm pulling data from a whole bunch of different tables. And, you know, with a traditional report writer, you have to figure out everything that you want to do and then do it all without, and never seeing a visual confirmation you're doing anything correct. With this, you can evolve the report, so consequently people become very successful a lot more quickly than you might think. So to do this, I'm going to use that sum function again. I'm going to click on sum. I'm going to look at, in this case, job cost transactions. And what I want to sum up is the amount. Now, in what situation do I want to sum up the amount? You know, you may decide to put a range of dates, because if you're doing a reconciliation, you're doing it on a range of dates. I've already shown you how to do that, so I'm just going to do it for the account. So I'm going to add a condition that, in this case, that the debit account is equal to the value in $C5, and I'll hit finish. And I want to look at my history too, let's say, perhaps. So I'm just going to copy this formula. So I could have done this with a union inside of SQL for advanced people, but you can do it just right here if you want. And this is easier for a lot of people. What did I do there? Don't see anything wrong with that. Kind of current JCT record one, history JCT record one. C5. All right, I'm missing some. Sometimes I do this all the time, and sometimes what's right in front of your own face you can't see here. The history file is called, unless it's named, it's history JCT record 1. These are the internal names of the fields, so you should just simply be able to do that right there. Maybe I took something out here. I'm just going to bear with me here. So using current works. You know, sometimes making mistakes when you're typing in front of people is not such a good or bad idea, because I mean, in real life, when you work with this, it's not going to be as easy for you when you first start, but it will work. There's something going on here. I could, now if I ran into a situation like that and it wasn't working, what I would do is I would come right here. Now, I might not have a history file, but I would come here and build a sum function again, but this time when I sum, I might add a condition that the debit account I did not want to do it that way. Beg your pardon. Getting my cart ahead of the horse here. I wanted to do the sum function, but this time pick the history file. There's still a history file. You could ask to see if there was a history file and then make a determination. This record set does not have a history file. Tricky. No wonder. They built me a new sales virtual machine, and so things are a little different than I remember them. But there are techniques to check to see if a table exists, and not a bad idea to do that, by the way. You may not have a history table immediately, but eventually you will. So accounting for it is a good idea, and there's a way to check to see if it exists, and then only have the calculation happen if it exists. So. Anyway, so it made perfect sense that I would get that, but anyway, to the pull from a table, it doesn't even exist. I just kind of said that is the table name, but now in this case, it's the same thing that I just did, but it's off of General Ledger, correct? That's where the General Ledger detail is. So I'm looking in General Ledger in this case, and I want to look at the debit amount, and I'm adding the account. The account is equal to, I mean, really it's exactly the same thing you're doing, but just tilt gradually, not all at once. So I can hit finish and then copy this down. And I could then, use additional font or what have you that if the values aren't the same to highlight them. So there's a discrepancy perhaps somewhere. Well, in a situation like this, you a consultant, or you might think about in what situations might General Ledger not equal job cost for an account. Maybe if they entered the information in another application, that's the case for accounts receivable, by the way, accounts receivable but not to a job. Or if they entered information directly in General Ledger, that would also cause a situation like this. So I could do a condition, a query over here. But anyway, I just wanted to show you building something from nothing and to do so kind of in a more advanced way. I'm going to get out of that. And so that's the querying capability. You've got lots and lots of different examples, lots of useful things. Cash flow report here is really popular. Now, a work in progress report is always very popular, but if I wanted it to be based on a cutoff date, again, I'd be back to that other report where I have a whole bunch of sum functions. This is a more advanced way of doing it. I've got an example here of how you would do that. So if you don't want to know this, just close your eyes, but if you're more advanced and you want to kind of see that these things are possible, I've got this example where our technology, the formulas can actually, when we have a lookup, we can look up off the table, but we can also look up off of what's called a view. And a view is a query. And so, let's see here. I go cancel out. I may have multiple instances of Excel rolling around here. So let's see here. All right, that is correct. Let's log in. Oh, I've kept left on. Beg your pardon, everyone. See, that was on purpose. I wanted to show you that if they didn't know the login, they couldn't get out of the information. That was really my whole idea there. So, okay, so, but 5/31/2015 here, because I want to make sure I get it. So what this is doing, notice it's fast. If you did this with some functions, and then you did it with this will be within seconds, or with a very large database, less than a minute, whereas I had somebody who was doing something similar, and it took them maybe 3 minutes or 5 minutes to update a big report with a bunch of sum functions. This is a more powerful way. it's doing this because what we're doing is we're pushing the processing to the server, and we're telling the server, sum up this information in this way, but we're only sending one command to do it all, to do the entire table. And then what we're doing here is we're looking up the values off that table. So if you get it, you get it. If you don't, just think about there's ways to do things that are a lot faster than others. So if you're using this technology and you run into a speed issue, fret not, there are solutions to that, and you can learn to use them, or your consultant can aid you. That's the query capability. But what I'd love to show you here is writing, as well. So there's lots of reasons that you might want to write information back to your system. I'm going to use General Ledger for example. So if I open up this option, again, it comes with it. You need a standard license of Office Center Write. But if I open this up, I'm going to get a query of all my accounts. A lot of people I notice are working with their budgets and doing their GL budgeting in Excel. So I might do a query and get my account information here. And let's see here. We'll use that information. I've got a list of accounts, and I could then go through and put in my budget. So when you have, in General Ledger, you have a budget year, you have a budget type, and then there are accounts that you can have budgets on, and then you can use those budgets in your financial reporting. How do you get that information in there? How do you come up with your budgets? A lot of people do that inside of Excel, but do you want to do that and then manually type it in to Sage? Why would you do that? So if you're already doing it inside of Excel, you could come here and type this cell to wherever you happen to have that information. You could sum the budget column if the account is this account, and just use that same function and pull it off of other workbooks or other worksheets. However it is, you could query the values out of, from last year and maybe start with that and mark it up. However you come up with these values, if I said, I'm projecting cost, in these as being, maybe I've got, something like that. I've got a cross here what my projections are. Well, I want to get that information in there. Hidden in here are write functions. So Office Center Write is looking at it, and there's a formula that maps to tell it how to write into Sage. So if you just had a standard license, you wouldn't have to know that. You just come here, and this button right here would allow you to send the information into Sage. So first it will show you what it will write, and you can say, yep, that's great. And then if I click Write, it will actually write the budget in there, and I could refresh the query. It's telling me here who did the writing and whether it was successful. So we keep reports of all your, think of these as recaps, out there for you to look at. So you can write into the system in this way. I'm going to do another type of writing. Let's say a very common type of thing is that you have something you want to edit in your database. Could be insurance expirations, could be whatever. In this case, let's say you're going to change the GL account in some of your job cost categories. And you could navigate all the screens, but what I'm about to show you, I can do a lot quickly, and I don't use the use of job cost. I'm just using the use of Office Connector Write. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a query off the job cost, actually categories. That's for my GL. And I'm going to say I want the job extra cost code category, and maybe I've got the current cost account on there. Now, what it is I only want the category if it's equal to a certain category. Let's say I'm going to change equipment, or say material or whatever, some account. So I'm saying only show me the material categories. So I hit next, and I've got a query of that information. Now, I'm going to show you a way. I saw someone do this with accounts payable information, and she introduced the concept of selective undo. Okay, so think about that. Let's say you did some edits last week, and you found out some of them are incorrect. But there's, when I say some, it's like 700 days of records are affected out of several thousand. Okay, I don't really change. How do I select?
James,
some of them?
James, just give me a quick sec. Sorry. Okay, good. You're good.
Yep, back in business. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my query here off the category, but I'm going to show you what this is a query. So if I refresh the data, it's going to pull the information out of Sage again. So if I change this cost account to a different cost account, if I refresh, it'll be back to the show me what I changed it to, But let's say I wanted to be able to undo this. What I would do in that case is I would make my query I would not make it a query. It's not live anymore. So it's static information. So now I've got the information I want to work with, but it can't be changed. So now let's say I've got my new account. All right, and let's say I want to change this to 5005, let's say. So I can come here and I can get a lot of typing done fast. Notice that? I just double-click this little thing right here and popped right down. Well, this is what I want to change all of those to, but I don't want to do it manually. And the more you want to change, the more powerful this is. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the write wizard, and I'm going to say I want to write to the category table. Now, it has to be a field in the table that you can replace values, and that's controlled by the dictionary in Sage. So if you go to Report Designer and print your available fields with the ODBC option, you'll see the columns that can change. We also have manuals on our website called QuickAim that have all of that information in there. But again, what I want to do is I want to change the value on the category table. I want to modify that value. I'm not creating new categories. I can't do that with ODBC anyway. I hit next, and now I'm identifying the job. This is very important to get this part right because this is what I'm writing to. So D4. Okay, so that's the job extra cost code category I want to write to, and now it says what do you want to replace, and I just want to replace the cost account, and it says what do you want to replace it with, and I want to replace it with column H, so I'll put in $H 5 right there, and now if I copy this down, I've replaced it, and if I come up here and it's not changed in Sage yet. But if I come up here and I use the designer just now to build this right here, but I'm going to use the standard capability, and it will change it. It's trying to do the budget too because I have them both in the same workbook, but it's going to change all these categories. So if I hit write, it's writing all of that information. Now, right there, I've edited a lot of information, right? Very, very quickly. Mission accomplished, and people love that. But let's say I wanted to undo it. What you want to do, and I saw this customer, what this customer did is she said, let's say, to undo, she had a checkbox, but I'll say to undo, put a value, somewhere. Maybe I say put a value here. If I want to undo this one and this one, right, then I could do this. It's very, very simple. Think about it. It's Excel. I'm going to say if $J 5 is not equal to blank, then so if it's not equal to blank, I want to go ahead and write that new value. Okay, but if it's equal to blank, what do I want to? Or if it's not equal to blank, right? So in this case, it's pardon me. If it's not equal to blank, I want to get my value from the preceding column here. And if it's equal to blank, so I think I'll just change this. Boolean logic is great because you can just switch it that way and it's really quickly. So what I want to do is I'm going to copy all this, show you the exact same function. And I did not come up with this. A customer did. I missed my parenthesis there. I was quite shocked when she showed me this. This was like in 2005. So, and so now the value I want to write is not in column H. Right? You got C, D, E, F, G, H, I. I want it in G, column G. So I'm going to change this to a G right there. And Excel is so good and it captures my mess ups. So G5. So now I can copy it down, and if it'll either be G5 or H5, depending on if I have a value right there. you know. So, and we have things like this that are just check boxes. So now at this point, if I wrote my values in if I come to the category table and I look at the second one right there, the amount that it's going to write, let's see here, well, these should be 2003 if I did it correctly. So let's see here. Well, my Boolean logic might be wrong here. If J $J5 is equal to blank, then write 505. Otherwise, write 503. That's correct. All right. Let's try this again. That's me, Patrick. I just bite off big, difficult tasks to show useful things, though. So here's 5003 for that first one, because I'm doing it, whereas 5005 maybe for a different one, just depends. Yeah, my logic kind of messed up. But anyway, the concept is not only can I do the writing into the system, which can save a huge amount of time. If you have a project that you want to do, it's editing, this is a huge time saver. Pay for the entire investment in maybe one project. But if you do it in a certain way, you could potentially undo it by pointing which value you're going to write, either say that column or that column. This is an example of the writing capabilities. And there's other writing options there. Now, writing.
So James,
yep.
James, I think we have about 10 minutes left. Maybe
okay.
What we can do. Are we going to go through maybe import and financials quickly, or what were you thinking?
Doing quick I'm going to actually just only give a little bit on import and spend the last couple minutes there on financials. So writing is updates information in your tables, the same as if you were, say, under setup and maintaining information. But the concept of putting information that's detailed into the system, transactional detail, that would be importing. Now, the reason I didn't go off on importing immediately right off the bat, number one, because that can be a big subject all by itself, talking about what kinds of things you're trying to get into the system and why. People use it for remote payroll. I've had people use it for credit card detail. You know, credit card companies may save information in a CSV file. You may want to put that information into Excel, do splits, do allocations, and then create invoices from that. And the capability of importing is inherently part of Sage. You can do it with if you know the layout. The problem is if you mess up a comma in that file, you're messed everything up, and so that's not so great. The other thing is you have to work with information in a way that you need to import it, and generally people don't like that. So the import capability allows you to work in Excel with data that you want to see get into the system, but you don't have to work with it in the way it has to be imported. The technology will put it in there. Now, there's one import that it won't import otherwise, and that's job cost, miscellaneous worksheets. So this example right here on the import tab, we'll use query to build a forecast report, a project forecasting report. And if I refresh this data, you'll see one here. Okay, so based on the cutoff date, I'm going to look at the cost complete, and I can then have somebody fill out these values, maybe put a reason for why they're forecasting a cost. Well, that's a miscellaneous worksheet entry. Normally, you have to go into job costs and the miscellaneous worksheets, or PJ and the miscellaneous worksheets, and enter that manually. It can be tedious. With this technology, if I put values in here, like 45,000 to complete, and so on and so forth, if I come to my admin tab, I can simply create an import file, and what it will do is it creates a file, and then it launches, in this case, a special program that will then import that. What it does is it creates the transactional detail the same as if you manually entered it, and then it will, of course, update accumulated totals. So you can work in Excel present information in an optimal way for an operational person, but put in the transactional details to back that up. And people can use that for a lot of things, all the way to cash flow projections. We have a prototype workbook here that is, you know, I could show it perhaps a different time, but what it is it will allow you job by job to put in your projected costs and revenue and do so out, say, 2 years, and then write all that information into the system in miscellaneous worksheets, so you can use that in your reporting. So you can have a projection workbook, and you can have actuals, but for future periods, use your projected numbers. I want to hit on the financials, and that is this technology, quite a bit of capability here. We have a PowerPoint. I can send this actually to you, Patrick, and you could share this perhaps with folks. It's used at the TUG conference. But this shows you what financials can do, right? The financials that comes with Sage. Over here are all the things that Office Connector Financials does, which this other technology can't do. And so I'm going to build something from nothing. You have, the reason I'm going to do that is you can get, if you're not already using the technology, you can get an evaluation of this, you know, from Patrick here in Infrastructure Solutions, and you can run the reports that are on the Launchpad. Again, pointing out to you that there are all these reports here that you can run. Just follow the information tab, and you'll be able to set it up and use it. Let me show you really quickly how this works, why it's so fantastic. So actually, I have a template out here really quick. It'll help me do this more quickly. Where is it? Here we go. All right, there's information already in here. Text only. There's no data. It's all been manually created information. I'm going to connect to the property management database. It's got more information with the way I want to work with the information here. And I'm going to put in my login and password. What I want to do is I want to find the activity and balance for all the prefixes that start with 100 for that year and that period. But I can put in any year and any period. And my years and periods could be in my column headings. So doing a comparative financial this year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, not a problem, very simple. And also, as I said, if entities are in different periods or in different year ends, a period of 1 would be a calendar month. So what I'm going to do real quick here is I'm going to go into the function selector, the Office Connector function selector, and I'm going to use the TSGL amounts function to put this in there. So it's got parameters for my prefixes, it's got parameters for the base account, the year, the period, the amount type, the budget type, all these different parameters, including data folder that I can do. So I'm just going to insert this, and it's going to lead me through. So my prefix is this mask right here. I could have my prefixes in the column headings, but right here I'm just going to click this and say whatever is right there, use that for my prefix. I'm going to just say $B9 is my base account. My fiscal year is going to come from right there. My period is going to come from right there. And now if I leave amount type blank, it'll default to balance. But in my case, I want period activities. See that I typed the types over there so that we would have them and they're visible. So a period activity is what I want here for this column. Now I can copy this down, and I've got that done, and I can copy this now over. And for balance, you know, I can either come in here and edit this and replace the word period activity with balance, or just leave it blank. I'm going to put balance here. And now I've got I got a quick financial I just did that quickly, and it's really, really quite powerful. All the training for this product, the consultant training, is on YouTube. So any customer can see all that training and learn how to use the financial. The product was right now the hottest product selling out there, best reviews. So I kind of sneaked it in there, Patrick. Thanks for letting me do that.
Yeah, no problem, James. Maybe what I'll do is, you know, there's a lot to the product. What we're trying to do is provide you with a high-level overview. I think where the majority of our clients find value in this is typically they start with the query, to be able to get data out and into Excel so they can control their reporting. And from query, then we often see them move to import on those select pieces of information that they're managing in Excel and capturing in Excel today to give them a seamless way to bring that into the CRE database without rekeying any of it. And then lastly, many of the clients are adopting the financials, again, because it gives them the control to produce better looking financials. And again, they can leverage their knowledge and skills in Excel to make good looking reports, whether those are financial statements, job cost, property reports, any of those. So are there any specific questions for James while we still have him here?
We should start by asking him some questions to begin with. Patrick, just to kind of preview for them, if they're interested, this PowerPoint has the different financials that come with it, you know, screenshots of them, so that people can kind of see what they'd be getting if they got it. So I can send this to you.
Excellent. And if any of you, so we'll send a follow-up with some links in this PowerPoint presentation. But again, thank you very much for your time today. And we'll be following up with each of you individually to see how we can further support your investigation of this great complementary tool. Thanks, James.
Patrick, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.